Anderson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, big ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is up, and welcome to an edition of the Bruin Bible. You know, this is one of the first people I thought of when the news broke yesterday that Chip Kelly was leaving for the Ohio State Offensive Coordinator job. Wayne Cook, man, a guy that bleeds blue and gold, has been a part of this program, and just a fun person to talk to in times of, rebuild and despair for a lot of the fan base. But Wayne, first and foremost, how are you doing, man, on this Saturday evening as we're talking a new UCLA head football coach going to be coming to Westwood University?
Yeah. First of all, Will, it's good to see you, man. I know I've been following you on social media, so I know you've been out of Vegas. I love the Eric Kendrick stuff, Otito. I love where you find the. I've seen a lot of interviews. By the way, everybody has an opinion. Maurice Jones-Drew has an opinion on what's going on. He brought up Chris Horton, and I was like, I loved Chris Horton. Some people were talking about Jerry. Some people were like, bring back Deshaun Foster. It's fun to see, like, from my standpoint, and you can see I played golf today, so I look like I'm all in, and I know this is an old UCLA cover up that logo there, old UCLA thing, but like I've been thinking about this a lot. I know some of my friends, some of the people that I play with, people are mad.
Yeah.
Some people are like, what terrible timing. This is horrific. My situation is a little bit different. And it's because I feel like I'm friends with Chip Kelly. I feel like he's treated me really, really well. I feel like just like anybody that is in our life, I kind of want to, and if you'll indulge me with a little bit of time here, Will, there's some things that have happened. I've been at UCLA from Donahue. Toledo was my offensive coordinator, and then Toledo took over, and I was kind of separated for UCLA for about 4 or 5 years. I came back and started broadcasting when Toledo was still the head coach. So I've been basically through every coach, for most of us, unless we're, go back before that to the Dick Vermeils and stuff like that. But from Donahue on, I've been around this program. And the one thing I will say about Chip Kelly's teams is that they practiced like pro teams. Every practice I ever went to was incredible. And I can't say that about some of the previous staffs. I just can't. I players would screw around. I didn't appreciate like some of the language that I heard. I didn't appreciate that. There was other things going on that was like a distraction. Under Chip Kelly, this team had focus, at least when I saw them, on the field. I thought that people forget the first few years when people throw out the overall record. I think people are kind of being a little short-sighted, or not. Like the overall record is misleading because this team did nothing but get better. I know that this last year they went back a little bit, and I'll talk about some of the mistakes that I saw, because there were some. Like, again, you can be friends with someone and still see mistakes. I love the staff that Chip Kelly put together. You've met a lot of them, I'm sure, Will, but they're just great people. Like, I was sad as could be when Deshaun Foster left. I love Deshaun. We had so many great conversations, and to be honest with you, sometimes he told me stuff that, I couldn't always share, but good stuff. Like stuff like, that guy's really good. Like that guy should be playing more. And I'm like, oh, I agree with you on that one, Sean. So like, there's always going to be, these people like, and I only knew Dan Lynn for a year, and he's a great guy. Like, so Chip Kelly found ways to hire great people. For people that weren't paying attention since the COVID year, we've been getting a lot better. Rarely did we get blown out. We had a couple of games that, like the Arizona State game, to this day I can't explain. I don't this
past year. There's a couple in there.
There's a couple of them, but there was also big LSU win. There was also the Utah and Washington wins back to back. There was And I'm going to remind people of this. There was, for as bad as everybody claims that the recruiting was, we've put a ton of guys in the NFL. We're going to do it again this year. There's going to be guys who are going to go to the NFL. We had a top 10 ranked offense 2 years ago in the nation. Like, that's not easy to do. And we could go back and look at the history of how many top 10 offenses UCLA's had in the last 20 years, since 2000. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think it's been very many. And so that happened. And then last year we had a top 10 defense. And a lot of the players were recruited, maybe just not as high school kids, but as transfers. And so, like, it's been hard for me because I feel like we've been close in the last 3 years. And I know people don't want to hear that because people have just been mad. And so it was sad for me because I really still believed with all my heart that even in the offseason, I was like, man, we're kind of grabbing. We had a couple of defensive backs, and we got to, and that's just the way my mind works. I know, people want to just go straight to, screw him. This sucks. He can't recruit. We've got no good players. I'm like, I've watched some games where we've been really fun to watch. I mean, the DTR, Charbonnet, Bobo. I mean, that was such a fun team to watch. And then this year, if you weren't entertained watching that defense, you're crazy. And then I'll get to some of the mistakes because I think we all want to hear this. Chip Kelly needed to be better with the media. I know he didn't like it, but in our media, let's be honest with you, sometimes, and some of us are really, some of you out there are amazing, but some of you are doing nothing but looking for the negative stories all the time, and that's all you do. And there were people doing that when I played. Like, no matter what, like, I could get sacked 15 times, and you're like, well, Cook sucks now. And I'm like, well, I went to a Rose Bowl last year. Like, yeah, but you suck now. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like this, it's like there's always going to be people out there like that. And I hate to tell you this, but the people that are composing lists right now of who the next quarterback, the next coach is going to be, some of the same people are going to be big old babies when their person doesn't get hired. They're going to say UCLA doesn't care. They didn't try hard enough. They didn't go after the right people. And they're going to start trying to knock down the new person as soon as they get here. I hate that crap. Like, let's
unfair.
The school's going to do the best job they can, and they're going to try to replace him. But anyway, I really believe, Will, that Chip Kelly, and I said this to my wife, I've said this to anybody that'll listen, I wish he would have been a little bit more open with the media from day one. I think he got better, but I think it was too little too late. I think that, things like having the depth chart that you created at the beginning of the year and never change again is dumb. Like, I never understood that at all. Like, why? What are you afraid of? The depth chart's a depth chart. All I have to do is watch pregame warmups and I know who's playing. Like, it's pretty easy. Like having players that are, banged up and not just being honest and saying they're not playing. I don't get that from any college coaches, to be honest with you. I get it during the week a little bit for game plan, but it's like sometimes all the mystery and all the keeping secrets and all the other stuff. I think in the modern, or even like, hey, everybody, UCLA fans, all the people that we need to support the school. This is my philosophy on recruiting. We're gonna go after the high school kids that we think we can get that match the GPA and everything else that you need to get into UCLA. But we're gonna try to find the Leati Latus, the Zach Charbonnets. We're gonna try to find the Jake Bobos. We're gonna try. That's our plan. And I think if he would have just treated the UCLA fan base and been honest instead of being so secretive, I actually think that would have helped quite a bit. I think it would have been something. And I think whoever the new coach is, I think that has to be part of the discussion. Like, you need to be good with the media in LA. Like, you need to be, someone like, I'll give you an example. We one of the people, when the first not true rumor of Chip Kelly getting fired was started a while ago, my whole thought was Brennan would be great at this job, because Brent, now granted, he's a former teammate of mine, and I love the guy, and he's a friend. But at the same time, if you've watched him in Arizona, just like Jeb Fish before him, to be honest with you, they're great with the media. They're personable and friendly, and it doesn't mean you can't be a good coach and still be friendly with the media. Not everybody's going to be Bill Belichick. That's not the only way to do it. And so there were some mistakes. I actually thought, and I'll end with one more mistake, and then I'll let you jump in and start asking me questions. But I also think the big mistake, and I think this is a part of the reason why maybe, Chip's moved on and taking a lower paying. I mean, we don't know what his salary is yet, but I'm sure it's not going to be $6 million to be a coordinator. To have a payout, which I think was like 1.5. I'm pretty sure that he has to pay that leaving. I'm sure Ohio State will cover that. But like the idea is that we had a freshman quarterback last year, and this is not a knock on Dante Moore. And trust me, those same people I was just talking about that had decided that Dante Moore has to play and he's the best. I'll tell you this straight up. I walked out of spring camp and I said, Ethan Garbers is a starting quarterback, and it's not even close right now.
Yeah. We've had these discussions.
And I'm going to tell you that I think that there was pressure to play him because of NIL money. I don't know if that's true or not. And I can't, and even if it is, don't get mad at me. Like it sounds like that could have been an influence. Because if we're being open about like, trust me, I played quarterback and I had people boo me and I had people cheer me. I know how it feels. I know how it feels to win and I know how it feels to lose. I've been through it all. It was really for a young quarterback. It was one of the worst seasons I can remember. I mean, it was bad. It wasn't even like close to good. There was a couple of moments against teams that weren't that good, but like when we got into Pac-12 play, it was terrible. Ethan Garber should have been guy the whole time. He earned the job. He was the better quarterback. He was the more experienced quarterback. He's more agile. He's got the arm strength. And he led the team. And most of the time when he played, you mentioned the Cal game. We talk about the Arizona game. We were subbing him way too much. I know that Coach Kelly was trying to keep Colin Schlee, and I love Colin Schlee and how hard he plays, but I still believe that this was Ethan Garber's team, and it should have been the whole year. We might have had, instead of 8 wins, we might have ended with 10 wins this year. I really believe that because it matters that much. So there were some mistakes made. I'm sure some of that came from other places. Some of it came from Chip Kelly. I am proud of the players that have graduated from this team. I'm proud of how many players we put into the NFL. I'm proud of the culture that's been built. But now what's next, right? Well, again, I'm not saying I wish he was still here. I wish he wasn't here. I'm just saying that there's a lot of good people that have been at UCLA over the last few years. But now let's make this next chapter in UCLA history even better.
Yeah,
right? Because obviously mistakes were made. Right, there were mistakes made, and now we're gonna move forward. But I will say this: beware of Washington, beware of Ohio State's offense these next few years. I have a feeling that they're going to be pretty good.
I have no doubts, with the talent, and people can question Chip Kelly in a variety of different ways. You're spot on with the relationship with the media. Spot on with the relationship with the fan base. I think that was a huge part of why so many people are so prickly towards him.
Yes, I agree.
Bring out that warm embrace from the beginning. And when you kind of have – and Chip Kelly's just a naturally introverted guy.
Well, thank you for saying that because it's really not in his personality, but this is really funny. And I know you know this too because you got to talk about this. When you talk to Chip Kelly about football, around football people, he's awesome.
He loves it. He loves it.
The friendliest guy in the world. He's funny. He knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't have to just talk X's and O's all day. He's not like that. He's not like Rain Man. He's like a regular, normal, nice guy. He just, for whatever reason, and I have some opinions on this, but for whatever reason, he just never came around with the media the way I think the media wanted him to and the fan base wanted him to, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And, I got the pleasure of talking to, Quinn Lake and Otito Obonia this weekend.
Yeah.
And for all of the faults that Chip had, and I don't think he put enough thought into NIL. It's a different era of college football, granted. Yeah. Didn't put enough effort into, putting his arm around the fan base and media. He wasn't perfect, but one area he was, I talked to both of these guys, and they told me this guy was as good as preparing us for the NFL as anybody.
Absolutely.
And if anyone wants to dispute that, Darren Usher put out a tweet, the new GM of recruiting for UCLA. Do you know since 2021, the number of players UCLA has put out that are on active NFL rosters right now, they're tied for number one with Alabama.
Yep.
So you can fault him all you want. Sure, he lost, a couple games each year that he probably should have won that we're frustrated about still. But what you cannot tell me is he did not elevate the status of these guys and get them to the NFL. The problems I've had was, the timing of the situation. And it seemed, the joke that I've been making, it was like it felt like from the outside looking in, it was like the Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith relationship. It was so open. Like both sides didn't want to cut the cord. Nobody wanted to quit. Chip is actively, openly interviewing for the Raiders offensive coordinator job. I mean, this was reported by Ian Rappaport. He interviewed 2 times, had clear interest in the Seahawks and, the Commanders. What shocked me was I understood him going to the NFL as an offensive coordinator because in a lot of ways, it's not as much work as the college is now with the NIL.
Right.
Like you have a GM that brings you players and you just plug them into your system. You don't have to go knock on these doors, get out there while getting the fan base to invest in money to get these players. It's a lot less of a grind. What shocked me was him taking a college job at Ohio State. And granted, they have a lot of resources. They're the Ohio State University for a reason. But kind of that move to not only leave UCLA in February, but to do it at just an OC job at the college level.
Right.
That is shocking to me. And I know his relationship with Day and all that. But, man, shocking to say the least, Wayne. And, before we talk, moving forward, there's a couple guys that I'm interested to hear your opinion on.
Just real quick, can I just jump in here real quick? Because
absolutely,
I love what you just said there about the development of the players. Because again, I'm just going to reiterate the way this team practiced, and you talked about Lake and the players that you talked to, and they said the same thing, and it was obvious to me. The practices were done, and the development was done in a way. I used to go to UCLA practices. I won't say who the coaches were, like back, and when I would watch their quarterbacks, and I'd be like, "Is no one going to talk to these guys about their drops and what they're doing wrong and all that?" I go, and they'd be like, "Oh, we deal with that in film." I'm like, "Well, they just practiced it wrong for 2 hours." And it was like, and I never wanted to sound like, because I was coached by the great Homer Smith, and I can promise you that would never be tolerated. Like every single rep mattered, and if you were doing it wrong, it was going to be fixed, and you had to do it right. So the way they practiced was fantastic. You pointed out, and this is one thing I wanted to make clear, and this is for the whole world. And I know you probably don't care what I think, but this is just me having an opinion.
Sure.
Not everybody cares about the money. Like not everybody cares about. Because I'm a middle school teacher. I promise you, I'm qualified to be more than a middle school teacher. I do it because I love it. I love my hours. I love dealing with kids. I love being able to do the broadcasting stuff and still have another job. I love being able to play golf. I love being able to have free time. I don't need Chip Kelly. And I heard this, and I can't say what my source is. He had so much fun coaching the bowl game because, we had lost our quarterback coach. And so coach coached the quarterbacks for that game. And I remember watching the whole game, just thinking, man, this is so much fun because the team played so well. I just think he was like, I miss being a coach. All I'm dealing with now is NIL. All I'm dealing now is boosters. All I'm dealing now is administrators. I'm dealing with all this crap. And I'm just done. And by the way, I'm not making excuses for him. You're allowed to be mad because it was terrible timing. Terrible timing.
Yeah, timing.
But I promise you guys this. Martin knew this was coming, and that's why they've given this window. They've already been looking. You talked about the interviews with pro teams and stuff like that. Some of us heard the rumors about possible Boston College. There's a million rumors out there. But Ohio State, in this case, is kind of like Kiffin and Sark going to Bama. You go there, you have more talent than everybody else, which makes your offense probably work a lot better. Which, by the way, what Chip Kelly did, with recruiting being as bad as it supposedly was, pretty incredible. But when you go to Ohio State and you get some of the talent that they're going to have, do you think that people are he might be going for interviews now, but you think more NFL teams will be like, okay, Chip, we want you now. A year or two that's really good at Ohio State, and his stock will go back up. But I think he just loves to coach. I really do. And you pointed it out. Ryan Day played for him years ago. There's a cool connection here for that. But either way, enough on that. And again, I know it might seem like I'm all like, yay, Chip was amazing. We should have won more games. But to be quite honest with you, in some of those games, our players, you can't. If you can blame me for games I lost back in the day, then you can blame DTR for games for not scoring against SC at the end. or not completing the pass against Arizona. And I love DTR. He's great. But if we're gonna go down this road, let's remember that players actually are on the field too. And it's not always coaches that win and lose these games, because great players make great plays when you need them to the most. And we need to keep looking for those types of people, whoever the new coach is, so we can find ways to win the games we need to win, especially since we're going on to the biggest stage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's, you kind of nailed it in a lot of different ways. I think with Chip, coaching is what seems like he doesn't care what it's at right now. He loves coaching. And I think the Day connection played a huge part in that. And the most frustrating part, as a UCLA fan, Wayne, is I feel like we finally got the perfect coaching staff around him. Because, I think to add to one of his faults, I know Azenaro was his guy. It was clear those defenses weren't working at some extent. That's a really, a point where I thought he kept him too long. Had he made that change like after year one or year two, I think he would have endeared himself more to the fan base on that as well, because you see a D'Anton Lynn come in and really make a change year one, like snap of the fingers. Find me a better linebackers coach than Ken Norton Jr. Neuheisel was doing great things, the wide receivers. We've talked about Deshaun Foster and what he's meant to the running back group. So in terms of the totality of the coaching staff, I finally feel like he was assembling like a very good unit, a roster of coaches to develop these guys even further. So all the pieces were there. In the long run, it just didn't work out. But I'm interested on some of your opinions, Wayne. How about the name that's been floating around a lot, that a lot of people really like, Tony White? I've looked this guy up. He was 11th in total defense last year, just behind UCLA at number 10. He was the defensive coordinator in Nebraska, was a defensive coordinator at Syracuse. He was 8th in the nation in run defense, in terms of yards per game and what they were able to do under Matt Rule at Nebraska. Former UCLA player, linebacker from 99 to 2002. Clearly bleeds blue and gold. Apparently a very good recruiter from all my sources have been telling me. What is your knowledge on Tony White as somebody that's been covering the program with him there? And how would you feel about him potentially getting an interview for the head coaching job?
I think an interview is amazing. I think that, sometimes what's hard is we live in this world of, let's go get Pete Carroll. Yeah, you guys, he's 70-something years old. I'm like, let's go get Chris Peterson. I think Chris Peterson doesn't want to deal with all the modern day. I really don't. I don't think he wants to deal with what's going on in college football right now. Let's go get and we just keep throwing around the can we get Urban Meyer? Well, he's got health issues, and it's kind of like, this is a little bit. It's just this is going to take a ton of energy and resources to do this right. So when you hear a name like Tony White, who played late 90s, right, pretty much right after me, I think, and it's been a heck of a coach for a long time. Been doing on the defense end. Now I will preface this next little part by saying the most of the, like, when I look back at the great Rose Bowl teams from like the 80s and 90s, those were all like Homer Smith offensive coordinator teams. It feels like the best UCLA teams that I can remember were always really good on offense. It doesn't mean they were really good on defense too, but they were really good on offense. But like the Cade McDowell teams. But Tony, I think he's a great candidate. I don't know him well enough personally, but like, he's got a great resume. I guarantee you he's hungry. He's done a great job at a place like Nebraska, which we've all watched them kind of be down for a while. And I'm sure they're going to want to keep him. So yeah, absolutely. I think Tony White should get an interview. I hope we're interviewing a lot of people. I hope there's people because this is the thing that bothers me. Going back to the people that cover UCLA, and it's not everybody, so please don't think I'm picking on everybody. But UCLA, the people, well, UCLA is never going to be good ever again. They can't do this. They can't do that. It's like, when Jedd Fisch went to Arizona, do you think people were like, well, Arizona's got a chance to be great again? And all of a sudden, 1 year later, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're losing Jedd Fisch. He was going to lead us to like a national championship. I'm like, it happened almost overnight. And yet the negative people out there are like, it could never happen at UCLA. We've only got over 100 national championships in all our sports. We could never figure this out. Yes, we can. It just has to be the right formula. Like I talked on a show the other day where I was talking about, like, I do think the new chancellor is going to matter. I think that when you have a school that realizes that you can still be an amazing academic school and yet that sports can still be like that engine. UCLA has, I mean, shoot, Jackie Robinson played for, I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like we're talking about, like, we've had some of the greatest athletes, and our school loves to be progressive, and like those guys, we have like the first NFL African-American player, the Jackie Robinson crossed the color line of baseball. I'm like, we have that school. We've got so many stories. Let's win in football. But we're a basketball school. Like, no, we're not. We're good at both. We're good at everything. So let's figure this out. So if you think it'll never happen or it can never happen, then just go sit in your corner and be negative. I will always believe that it can happen again. I even read online the other day, I was cracking up at people, like someone was pointing out, well, even back in the day, like in 93, that's my team, they only won 8 games. Like, who cares if we only won 8 games? We beat SC's butt. We beat it, one of the best defenses in the history of the world in Desert Storm, and scored 30-something points. We beat their butt, and we won the conference. Yeah, but they only won so many games. You need to go, like, hide under a rock, because it's never going to be good enough for you. Like I get it. Like, going over 20 years without winning, was it 25 now, since 98, that we haven't won? That sucks. I agree with that. We have to win. We have to win more and fight for those championships. I agree. Let's actually go back in time and retroactively act like even back then we weren't that good. We won the conference. What do you want? So I know those people are out there, and I'm not trying to get up on my soapbox and act like, but like, wouldn't we love to have those moments again? I know it's in a different conference now, but would you complain if we lost 2 games and won the Big Ten? Probably not. You'd probably be You'd probably be really, really happy. So it is what it is. I know I'm all over the place. It's been a long day for me, but like, I hope that people believe. I hope the people in the athletics department believe this, that we can hire a great coach. You just mentioned one. I know we're just getting started. We can have great assistants, because we just talked about how we have had great assistants. Our school, it has put more money into football. Like, there's opportunity. I really believe there is. It just has to be the right formula. We haven't quite found it yet, but I truly believe that we can.
Yeah, I do too, Wayne. And, you know, the frustrating part on the surface for the February departure was a lot of the guys that we could have talked about. You know, your Jonathan Smiths from Oregon State or some of these other guys, they've been long moved on, you know, which makes the timing of this difficult. But I did hear, you know, it was confirmed by Jason Shear, at least for the guy who formerly covered, you know, Jed Fish at Arizona, that Jed Fish, there was an interview at some point this week of him talking to UCLA. I know he just took the job at Washington.
Yeah.
It'd be a $10 million buyout. I don't think it's realistic. But Jed Fish was the number one guy I wanted, you know, initially in the cycle. If Chip were to depart during that November kind of frenzy when everyone thought he was going to get fired, it didn't end up happening. So we kind of had to you know, brainstorm there. David Shaw's another guy that's come up a couple of times. Fan base does not like this guy. I'm kind of, you know, I'm a little bit more bullish on Shaw than some people. I don't think he's my number one candidate, but, you know, the people that think he just basically took the teams that Harbaugh had, didn't follow college football. He did 8 more years. He went to 4 Rose Bowls with Harbaugh not there. I mean, this is the guy that brought Christian McCaffrey, who's playing the Super Bowl, Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL, you know, to you know, Stanford. So you got Shaw there, you got Jed Fish. There's a couple other names out there. Fleck was in the picture for a second, left. Your buddy Brett Brennan, there was rumors circulating today that he might leave Arizona. I don't think that's likely given what I've seen since then. Talk to me about Fish and Shaw, and maybe even a guy like Deshaun Foster, who could come back in here and be the face of the program. Those are the 3 guys that I'm looking at. I know Foster's limited experience, but everyone that's played that for that guy loves him. If he's got a great staff, there's a lot of great options. So talk to me about Shaw, talk to me about Foster, and talk to me about Fish.
So let's go back and have fun with the Fish, Jed Fish, and Brent Brennan, because I saw both those reports today.
Yeah.
And then right afterwards, I saw Brent Brennan, who's like, in Boulder for an Arizona basketball game with all his Arizona, and he was in Phoenix watching the golf tournament. He's wearing all his Arizona gear.
Yeah.
I just, and again, I'm gonna say this, and I think we all know, if it's an election year in politics, and if you're out there listening, like, and you believe everything you see on social media, then you're part of the problem, because we're being lied to on a regular basis. Like, propaganda on steroids is what social media is now. And it's happening in sports too, obviously, just like it does in politics. They're like, I may be wrong, but can you imagine Jake Fish? He already pissed off the world in Arizona for getting them and having a team that was going to come back and most likely be the favorites in their new conference and leaving, which is just more like, it made him, he went from an aw shucks, kind of, I'm a great coach and I'm a good dude, to kind of looking like a little bit of the jerk. Like, sorry guys, I mean, I know I told you, I promised you the world, but Washington's a better job, so I'll see you later. And so, could you imagine if Brent Brennan did the same thing after going to Arizona to replace him?
He's like,
yeah, I'm out of here. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't believe that those two guys interviewed for UCLA's job. I mean, you'd have to prove that one to me, because that makes no sense, like none whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree.
Makes zero sense. So we'll move on to. I'll say this. I've heard Eric Bieniemy's name mentioned by a lot of people.
It'd be awesome.
When Eric Bieniemy was at UCLA, that was one of my favorite. That was back when Carl Durrell had Embry, and he had, I don't even know, was Dino Babers on that staff? That might have been later, but we had a great staff. But that was the staff that coached Maurice Jones-Drew and Mercedes Lewis and Drew Olson, and that was the team that won 10 games, and they were like the cardiac kids that came back every week. It was incredible. Such a fun team to cover. And then, we couldn't pay those guys enough to keep them around. But you got to think about a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who's just got to like absorb what Andy Reid has done. And there's reasons, and I know people want to come up with reasons that probably are, probably not true about why Eric Bieniemy's never become a head coach. I don't have the answer to that. I know I liked him a lot when he was here. I know he's gone on to do great things in the NFL, and people have loved playing for him. I feel the same way about Deshaun Foster. Deshaun Foster was one of the best running backs UCLA's ever had. He's a great coach. We go all the way every year. Now, part of this is, not just Deshaun Foster. I mean, we have to give credit to Chip Kelly's system and the way he runs the football. But to be honest with you, whether it was a walk-on and Joshua Kelly, whether it was a transfer like Britton Brown or Zach Charbonnet.
Felton was a wide receiver?
Yeah, Felton was a kid. My son played against at Great Oak High School right here in Temecula Valley, and he's a great athlete, but he wasn't a running back. He was more of a slot receiver type. Like, he was like that, and he ended up being a great running back. Deshaun Foster just turned. I mean, all those guys were talented, but he just has coached them up. But then when you talk about the type of leader he is, the respect he has from the players and the team, I think he's a guy. And again, what worries me a little bit is being a head coach is really hard.
It is.
Like, an assistant coach is not the same. Like, a head coach has to wear so many different hats. And it's a real challenge. But at the same time, I'll tell you, everybody knows this. I mean, Terry Donahue wasn't a head coach before he became a head coach at UCLA. And he's won more games than anybody in conference history. And I don't think anybody can break that now, because it's not a conference anymore. So the idea is that, like, sometimes you got to take a chance on these, young and upcoming coaches. And yes, it seems like all the young coaches that get jobs now are all the analytics guys. But maybe, just maybe, some of these guys that are actual football players and really good at what they do in communication and leadership, maybe they just need their shot. We might have the next great head coach, and right in front of us. I mean, like I said, like Deshaun Foster, like Eric Bieniemy, these are people that have been at UCLA. Jed Fish was here a little while. I don't think he's coming back. But Brendan, I promise you, people would have been mad at me for saying this, but I thought he would have been perfect. And I thought that before he took the Arizona job, and that's why I was like, yep. And that's why you talk about the timing too, because of this Jonathan Smith. I've met Jonathan Smith more than once.
Great guy.
Great guy. I mean, it's like, and he knew he was trying to be loyal to Oregon State, but because of all the things that have happened and them not having a conference, I think he had to make the move. But he could have been someone as well. But that doesn't mean, let's go back to the negative people. we lost the best opportunities. There's other people out there we can find. Now, here's the deal, though. I don't know if you saw this, but there were some recruits that are like, I'm still locked in. Like, I don't know if you saw it on social media.
Charlotte. Shout out to Charlotte.
Like, a couple of them did. I saw from another one, too. They're like, no, we're still locked in. The quarterback, Carlson. I think he also said, and hopefully, if I think Martin Jarman said that this is going to happen pretty quickly, which tells me that they've already been looking, that it needs to, because we need to go to Kate Madrano and say, hey, but I know you got 30 days, but we want you here. Hey, coaches that you want to keep, like, you know what I mean? Like Ken Norton and like Coach Norwood and like Ikaka Maboy, like if those are people that fit into the future of, because this is what's so scary. You know, you want the new coach to come in and have an opportunity to look at the staff you have, right? And then to think about, like, how are we going to keep this thing intact? The offensive side of the ball has nothing but players coming back. I mean, this offense has a chance to be really, really good next year. So, you want to come in and start recruiting those players right away. And then we still have another transfer portal window coming up to maybe fill a couple of, positions as well. So this hire has to be kind of quick, but at the same time, you want to make sure you take your time and make the right decision, because all of that's going to matter. You really want to try to keep the players that are here from wanting to transfer, because, we have some really good players that other places are going to want.
Yeah, Bieniemy, I mean, just from a recruiting tool standpoint, he could walk into these quarterbacks' living rooms. LA guy, too, so he was the coach from 2003 to 2005, the running backs coach. He got more resources to move to the NFL. Just to think about this as a recruiting tool. Oh, Patrick Mahomes, the face of the NFL. I was that guy's OC, for 4 years. Do you want to FaceTime him right now? Do you want to get him on the phone? He could talk to you. Bieniemy, to me, if he was interested, he'd be in my final group. I think there's a lot of positives there. I think Foster, the only thing that holds me, if he was like an offensive coordinator, I'd be like right there.
Right.
And he did get that a promotion to like associate head coach last year. So he is expanding his portfolio. And I don't think his time at UCLA is completely finished. I think there's going to be a revolving door there where he wants to come back. But, it's going to be interesting, man. David Shaw is a name out there too.
I didn't talk about that, but I heard what you talked about. You and Badman, Jamal talked about him the other day, and people kind of were like, we don't want him. Did you see his last 3 years? I'm kind of with you. I watched David Shaw across the field, kind of outsmart many UCLA teams and outcoach many UCLA teams over the years. I did. And I got to admit it. That I walked by him, in that weird walk back to where the locker rooms are at Stanford Stadium. And I just kind of would always look over at him and be like, and he just was like, yeah, I'm good at this. I do think the changing in college football, the constantly, having to recruit that certain athlete at Stanford is a challenge. And if you dip a little bit, when you're winning, it's easier to get the best of the really smart kids around the country. But when you're not winning, UCLA deals with this to some extent too. When you're winning, it's easier to grab those players. When you're not, it's not as easy. And when you slip a little bit, it's hard. And I don't know if in the current situation, NIL's we'll see what happens with Stanford going forward. It might be tricky for them. I'm not really sure. But I like David Shaw. I've met David Shaw I've talked to him a lot this year because he's been around the program quite a bit. We played against each other. He's my age. He was at Stanford when I was at UCLA, and I do like him. I don't know if he's the right choice or not, but I wouldn't be like, oh no, if he got hired, I'd be like, this guy's David Shaw. Stanford was a top 5 team in America for over a decade. Like one of the top teams in the country. When they had remember all the great tight ends. They had great big receivers. You mentioned McCaffrey before that. They had, and I don't know when the Jim Harbaugh transition happened, but David Shaw coached a lot of really, 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 really good teams. He knows a lot of people, because I will say to anybody listening, I don't care who the coach is. If it was Deshaun Foster, who you hire as assistants matters. I just pointed it out earlier. Every single time Terry Donahue brought back Homer Smith, to coach the offense, we went to a Rose Bowl. I'm serious, every one of them. Like he was a key hire. It doesn't mean Terry Donahue wasn't a great coach, because I've always felt like great leaders surround themselves with great people, right? You want to get people around you that are really good at what they do. So I don't care if it's Eric Bieniemy, I don't care if it's David Shaw, I don't care if you use your connections to try to bring in the best staff. Like we talked about Dan Lynn, great hire. He inherited a lot of really good players, but he was still a really good hire. Ken Norton, getting him out of the NFL was a really good hire. Like you bring in, I loved Ryan Gunderson. I thought he did a great job with DTR. I thought he was one of the most polished quarterbacks at the combine when he was there. He looked fantastic, and that's coaching. So like you bring in these people. Now, granted, some of those people I just mentioned have moved on, but that happens. That happens, and that happened. That great coach that I talked about, Homer Smith, he left before my senior year after we went to a Rose Bowl and went back to Alabama because his family was there. And that sucks, but that's part of the business. Then you got to find someone else to bring in, and they brought in Bob Toledo, and Bob Toledo was a heck of an offensive mind. And he led us to 20 straight wins at one point with Cade McNown and a Rose Bowl. So you can do it, but you have to surround yourself with the right people. So that's whoever we hire, that's going to be as important as the head coach. Who can we fill the staff in with?
Totally agree, Wayne. Hopefully we can retain the Ken Norton Juniors and the Jerry Neuheises of the world moving forward. Thank you for joining us and just sharing your initial thoughts on UCLA moving into unprecedented territory with evaluating new head coaches in February. Wayne, we're going to have you on the line when we make a hire. We'd love to have you back just to kind of get your initial thoughts and where we're headed. Any parting thoughts you got for us before we head into this Super Bowl Sunday tomorrow? I mean, pretty epic stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. My party, I always get anxious because I don't want people to think that I'm all like, woo, go, this is great. Trust me, guys, I want to win more than anybody. I after the Arizona State game this last year, I was like, what the heck just happened? Like, why did that happen? And no coach is free from blame. These guys make a ton of money. They're grown men, and it's their job to win the games they're supposed to win. Those are the hardest ones to take, right, Will? When you win the games you're supposed to win and you lose games that you're supposed to win, it's the losing games you're supposed to win that are like, are you kidding me? And really, if you want to just look at those last 3 years of the Chip Kelly era, we can all name those games. It's like we had that one. We should have beat them. Like, what the heck happened there? And that's what. And again, that's why Coach didn't get fired. He didn't. He moved on. But still, those are things that make people go that you question. You're supposed to win the game against Arizona State. You're supposed to win the game against Cal. Like, you win those two games, it's a 10-win season, and everything can be totally different right now. And so, hey, Bruin fans, let's all, like, whoever the new hire is, we live in a world of NIL, and we live in a world where, like, it's going to take a lot of us to support the team, sometimes financially. We have opportunities by season tickets. I promise you the Rose Bowl next year with the Big Ten schools, I think it's going to be awesome. So I hope that people show up because there's going to be a lot of big games. You actually matter. All that stuff matters. Like we can complain about the program, but how about supporting it? I think that's where I'm coming from. Let's support it. I know you're frustrated, but isn't it funny that all the people that complain about UCLA, they always come back and they complain more. Yeah. So it's okay. You're allowed to complain. It's trust me. You're allowed to boo. You're allowed to be upset. But let's
do it at the Rose Bowl.
And let's support the guys we have. If Ethan Garbers is our quarterback next year, let's appreciate the heck that we have a pretty darn good quarterback coming back, who's an upperclassman, who had a really good year when he played last year. And let's treat him like he was a former 4-star who got a scholarship to play under Chris Peterson, who's a heck of a coach, and then came to UCLA and has been really good. So let's support those guys, and hopefully we can have a good year next year.
Yeah, for the naysayers that didn't show up to the Rose Bowl, these past few years because of Chip, your excuse is over. We need you out there next
Yeah,
year.
we need you. Yeah.
We need you out there supporting the team, guys. So, let's put faith in what we've got going on moving forward, that this university can hire the next head coach for UCLA to move them on to winning circumstances. But thank you so much again for coming on, Wayne. We're going to have all this stuff reporting with the coaches and the coaching search right here at LA Football Network and the Bruin Bible. Stay tuned, guys. We will be back very, very soon. Have a good weekend.